Well, last week, the Family Research Council held a town hall for life in Iowa. We did that last Wednesday night, and I was grateful that Jody Heiss filled in for me on Thursday and Friday as I was traveling back. Now, at that town hall meeting, we were joined by Senator Lindsey Graham and others, Marjorie Dannenfelser with Susan B. Anthony. So we discussed how supporting pro-life policies at the federal level is really a minimum price of entry for any Republican presidential candidate. And with the first post-Roe presidential campaign underway, GOP candidates this past weekend spoke at the Faith and Freedom Coalition Conference and demonstrated that many of them are in fact committed to building this culture of life post-Roe. Join me now to discuss this is Brent Keilen, Vice President of FRC Action. Brent, welcome to Washington Watch. Good to see you.
Thanks, Tony. Good to be with you.
So it looks like we saw many of the candidates were listening to the messaging, while some Republicans have been running from the life issue because the midterm didn't turn out well for them because they allowed the Democrats to define their position. They didn't define their own position. But it appears now that some of the Republicans are getting their footing, so to speak, on the life issue and ready to lead forward.
Tony, I think you're exactly right, which is very encouraging to see. And I'll say, this Road to Majority conference, which was hosted by Faith and Freedom Coalition, as you mentioned last weekend, this is significant for a couple of reasons. One is some of these major presidential candidates are newer to the field. They hadn't officially launched their bids until recently. So this was the first event where all of these candidates were in Washington, D.C., speaking together at the same event to the same audience. And then the other factor is just that we're still relatively early on in this Republican primary, and so these positions really still are being discussed, being molded, if you will. So what they say at events like this is incredibly important. Will shape the discussion, and like you mentioned earlier, we got some very encouraging statements at this event. We had a number of them talk about the life issue. They did not run from it. They took some very good positions. We had former Vice President Mike Pence. He said, at minimum, all of these candidates need to at least support a 15-week bill protecting unborn children, point at which they can feel pain, suck their thumbs 15 weeks and after. We had former President Donald Trump say there is an important federal role to be played in protecting unborn children. We had Tim Scott came out with some comments over the weekend, similar to Vice President Pence's, on the importance of that 15-week legislation. And Tony, I was pleasantly surprised. Even Asa Hutchinson, the former governor from Arkansas, not really considered the most conservative candidate in the field. Even he said he would sign federal legislation if Congress passed it and sent it to his desk. So some very encouraging statements for sure over the weekend.
Yeah, I've got a couple of those clips, Brent, from this weekend. Play clip 5 followed by clip 6, please.
I want to say from my heart, every Republican candidate for president should support a ban on abortion before 15 weeks as a minimum nationwide standard.
And yes, as president, I would fight to make sure taxpayer funds are not used to support abortion. And if Congress acts, I will sign a federal law to restrict abortion as well as President of the United States.
Of course, that last one was Asa Hutchinson. Prior to that was Mike Pence, former vice president, both speaking to this issue. Of course, Florida Governor DeSantis also spoke this weekend at the conference, and play a clip of what he had to say, clip number 7.
We have also delivered in Florida on promoting a culture of life, and that means signing the heartbeat bill into law that protects unborn children when there's a detectable heartbeat. It was the right thing to do. Don't let anyone tell you it wasn't.
You know, Brent, we talked about this last week. While there are still some Republicans at the federal level who are saying this is a state's issue, the Democrats don't see it that way. In fact, this weekend, there was another event, this one in North Carolina, where the Vice President, Kamala Harris, spoke. And this is what she said about the issue at a pro-abortion rally. Play clip number 9.
The United States Congress must pass legislation to restore the protections of Roe v. Wade. And when they do, President Joe Biden will sign it.
Brent, no question there that they see this as a national issue. What do we see occurring at the grassroots level?
Tony, if you look at the grassroots level on the Republican side, I mean, you are seeing, many pro-life voters who are engaging on this issue. I think at the grassroots level, they're really starting to formulate, shape, impact the presidential primary at that level. We know this has always been an important issue. If you rewind a year ago, when we had that Dobbs decision come down, there was the message that was being put out there that was having some impact at the grassroots level, saying, hey, Roe was overturned. We can all go home now. But we've always known that wasn't the case. But I think particularly at the grassroots level, much more aware of that. We have got a lot of work to do, and they're starting to voice that. They're starting to impact the Republican candidates and their positions on the issue. And I think it's really kind of working its way up, if you will, to the positions we see them taking at the event over the weekend.
Yeah, important point, Brent, that this is not the time to listen to the media and those that saying this is not a winning issue. It doesn't matter if it's a winning issue or not, it's the right issue. But the more that moms, dads, pastors, business leaders, everybody begins to talk about this issue, it is going to work its way up, and we're going to see more of the presidential candidates and the others speak about it. Brent Keilen, thanks so much for joining us. Great to see you today.
Thanks, Tony. Appreciate it.